Hey guys, welcome back to another 2T meditation video. In this video, we have Miss Cynthia Liu, the founder of Camp Tuku, a very wonderful mindfulness camp.
First we want to ask you a little bit about why did you create this camp?
That's a really good question. Now, this stemmed back about 35 years ago when I was still in college. Back in those days, newspaper are still printed newspaper.
Yeah.
So there was something that just really drew my attention, and the title was looking for a summer camp counselor, for the 7 week duration in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. So for those of you guys, who don't know about Poconos, it's a vacation location, place. People go there for summer, winter, for skiing. So it's really like a great place to kind of relax. So we all knew about it. So it just somehow drew me to it. I applied for the job and then got the job and then worked there for 3 summers after that. Now, there's just something about camp that's really endearing. I mean, for myself, it really opened me up as a young adult. I was always very shy growing up, very introverted, very unsure of myself. And being in an environment in nature, with kids, with counselors. Now, what's unique about, the camp too is that they hire counselors from all the English-speaking countries, England, Ireland, New Zealand, and Australia. So having exposures to people with different mindsets, with different culture, just make me feel very at ease, right? So it's a really transformative journey for me, going from a very, very shy kid who doesn't talk a lot to feeling very at ease and, also develop that sense of pride, belonging, and the feeling of being needed by the kids.
Yeah.
I had the youngest bunk, and the age for that youngest bunk, the buddies they call it, ranges from 6 to 8 years old. So for many of them, it's their first year at camp. And so to be away from home for 7 weeks, right, this is consecutively 7 weeks they stay at camp, from being also very, very timid, unsure of themselves, missing home, homesickness, and then, going through the journey of, being there for 7 weeks, right? They cry the first couple of days of camp, and they also cry the last night of camp because they don't want to leave the friends that they've made.
Yeah.
So it's just a culmination of everything that kind of completes me, as a young adult. So for the 3rd year, I actually snuck back as asked work for a sabbatical for the summer because I just needed that energy to refuel myself. And so at the end of that 3rd year, I know that I can't continue to take sabbaticals every summer, and pretty much vowed to myself that if there is a way later on in life that I would open up my own camp. And the other half of that was, with my mindfulness practice, meditation. I was very fortunate to have met, my teacher, Mingyur Rinpoche, in my about mid-30s, right? So I started meditating, and it helps me calm myself. It helps me open up my worldview. And, as I was thinking, getting closer to the end of my formal career, I felt like I was ready and I can bring both of those together, to teach kids and staff, how to do mindfulness practice, and also bring that funness to camp and have kids, and staff both enjoy the process of learning, just doing, through more an informal approach, right? You're not sitting in classroom learning things, but you're learning it almost through osmosis, right? And so that's kind of how we got this journey started with Camp Tuku.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
That was just a little bit about how you started creating the Camp Tuku, but just a little bit about, did you experience any challenges when creating the camp, like any hardships, what'd you think?
As with anything and everything in life, there's always challenges. No difference with camp. So as we were preparing to open camp, camp was incorporated in 2019. So our first year of camp was supposed to be 2020. And as you know, that's in the midst of heavy COVID year. And literally, we were actually brave enough to think that we can open up camp, real, in-person camp. 2 weeks before that, a couple of our executive staff had caught COVID. And then a few around us also have potentials of getting COVID. And with just so much going on, with family being concerned and, us not being, able to be there physically, at first we actually were thinking about just canceling camp altogether. But my two right hand, left hand directors, we have a program director and we had an operation director, Rachel and Paige, actually came to me and said, I think we can turn this into a virtual camp, right? So we pivoted like right there and then, and with so little time, we were able to actually turn it into a virtual camp, and actually, ended up to be a real blessing because we learned a lot from a programming perspective of what works, what may not work, and what needs improving. We found that cooking, and believe it or not, we actually have cooking virtually. With, of course, parents are mostly at home. They can kind of, make sure that everything is safe. And kids loved it, and we had kind of a different, international cuisine going out, teaching kids how to make healthy food. And that really stick, so we're like, well, we definitely have to keep cooking, in our camp curriculum. So that was, one of the challenge, of camp. And there are also challenges like recruiting for counselors. It's, maybe not as a sought after job nowadays with the young adults as maybe it was back then. So we had to get really creative, with recruiting as well. And that's, one of our challenges.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like one important lesson or like theme that you've learned yourself from teaching mindfulness or meditation?
Yeah, so going back to just, the whole mindfulness journey, right? It's about, knowing who you are and calming yourself down. And there are, with camp, anything's possible. We plan for many different scenarios, but from time to time, there's a scenario that you're not prepared for. And so the very first thing that you have to do handling those type of situations is making sure that you're calm. So when you're calm, then your staff, and the campers are calm. So, having that practice myself helped me, to kind of be able to face a situation that might be a little bit adverse, or, a little bit unexpected, right? So that's one. And the other one I feel is really just being open-minded and curious about how others are feeling and thinking.
Yeah.
Right? I tend to be me knowing the best, right? I was a camp counselor before, I've worked, in professional environment, and sometimes you get it in your own head that you know more than the others. But on the contrary, we learn from you, right? We learn from teens, we learn from kids are even 6-7 years old. Topic of homesickness that does happen, and that ranges from 6 years old to 12, 13 years old. Some of them may not have been away from camp, from home often or at all, right? Especially during those 2-3 years of COVID where nobody went anywhere, right? So dealing with the homesickness, putting myself in their shoes of what they must be going through. Right? So being curious to learn what others are feeling and also what others have to say, right? And it also helped cover up blind spots, right? Things that you don't see because you're just going straight ahead, but there's so much around you in your peripheral that you miss a lot of time. So sometimes it's just kind of sitting, observing, and then taking in information, body cue, verbal cue, really helped me as a person, as kind of in this journey, we're still growing, right? Whether you're 50-ish years old or, you're 6 years old.
Yeah, I think that's great. And through, all of your years of Camp Tuku, have you, could you maybe share a story or this sort of mindfulness practice that you practice at Camp Tuku really help someone, or someone in need in maybe a stressful situation, or anything? How has this mindfulness helped someone? Just give me an example.
Sure. I'll give you a couple.
Okay.
One example is, and the first, second year at camp, we were in Prescott, which is much higher altitude than here in the valley. So naturally, your breathings are going to be, when you're just getting used to that, a little bit short, a little bit harder breath. And that sometimes exacerbated with, again, feeling unease, right? And the way that sometimes, campers having issue dealing with a new environment could manifest in a, name of homesickness, right? Because it's pretty prevalent. So everybody just immediately goes to, I'm homesick, I want to go home. And how I've dealt with that a couple of times is just using nature as the backdrop, right? So I would tend to pull them aside and just walk with them, and a couple of ways to calm them down so they can be a little bit more congruent, right? Is to just have them breathe. Is one, like using all your senses. The other one is just have them listen to the sounds, right? Whether it's birds chirping, whether it's plane flying by, people talking, just have them focus on the sound. Also calms them down greatly. And then invite them to talk to you about them, right? Who they have at home, what do they miss the most, right? So it's kind of turning the attention more toward them, to give them that platform to speak, right? And to feel important. So, there's different ways to kind of get them to talk, but, being in a little bit separate, right? Kind of pulling them away from the group, you get a lot of information as to how to help them. And sometimes, just listening to them talk, and that, also helps so that, they get whatever they are trying to say, or maybe they're having some hard time at home, just to be able to air that out, kind of letting everything out helps calm their mind too. So that's kind of a way of helping them focus, through, sensing, through being aware of what your body is trying to tell you. Is one way I help them. The other way is this happens a lot around bedtime, and then even the most active extroverted kid, when they get to be quiet at night and lights out, and all sorts of emotion just kind of emerge. All of a sudden, they know they're not in the same bed that they were, and there's also this kind of feelings, like if you feel something, then everybody around you feels something. And I've had this happen where a whole group of kids, one started to feel homesick, and then everybody started to feel homesick, right? So when everybody feels the same, and some in a more, at a deeper level or lighter level, I work with them on what's called a body scan. And Sunan, you're very familiar with what body scanning is like, right? So usually you just kind of scan your body, envision that from your head to your toe until everything's relaxed. With the kids, we do a little bit of a twist. We make it more fairy tale-like, and then we say it's a butterfly scan, body scan. So butterfly landing on your forehead, and imagining yourself sitting on the beach, right? And then just kind of scanning everywhere, and the butterfly landing on your eyelashes, face, body. And 99% of the time, by the time I get to the toe, everybody's asleep, right? And I think you may think it's odd, right? But think about it. First day, second day, so much activities, bodies are so tired, but the minds are not, right? You're still working overtime. So when you give them, the tools to kind of calm themselves down, just speaking softly, slowly, giving the imagery of being relaxed at the beach, or I always ask their favorite place, whether it's in the forest, in your backyard, or a lot of, kids would just say beach, right? So laying in the sandy beach. And it's really magical to be able to apply that and help kids, right, relax. It's wonderful, right? It's also great, at helping them to resolve conflicts, especially teenage boys. There's sometimes, again, I think some of the nervous energies, or, people wanting to get attentions of kids that might be more popular, right? And sometimes they'll use means that may be not the most desirable, right? And that, creates conflict, creates tension. So, the way we remedy that is to kind of have them think in each other's shoes. Like, what might John be feeling? and if you know this is how John's feeling, what would you do to help them get through that, right? So it's just turning the lens, and perspective taking is very big on our mindfulness practice.
So we've talked a lot about other people and how you've helped other people. Could you just share how you think this camp has helped you personally grow?
I think the biggest is to really to get to even know myself in a deeper level, in a different way, right? So I worked in the staffing industry for about 35 years, and for a long time that's pretty much kind of all professionally. But now that the attention is turned into camp and the business of camp, the audience is a little bit different. We still deal with adults because there's staff and then there's counselors, but we're also dealing with younger minds. And it helped me also communicate, find different ways to communicate with different people, including my own kids, right? And so then you're same age as my daughter, and you know that as you go through your teenage years, right, it's different. And you may think that, my daughter at least thinks, parents don't know as much as they do, right? Yeah. So how to be able to break through that barrier and being able to communicate with them, is also something that I learned, and something that I think all parents, right, will be able to, benefit from. It's being, knowing different ways of communicating with different levels and different age group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being with us here. You can go sign up for Camp Tuku at camptuku.org. We will put the link in the description down below. Obviously, thank you very much, and please, if you can, click on that link. And Camp Tuku is a very interesting sort of experience. We can definitely make more videos about Camp Tuku if you guys want to. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Sunan.